Welcome back to the Deep Dig of Sports Pod. It's your host, Drew, my other host, right here as always.
What's up? It's D. Good to see you again. This is our 51st episode. We're going to be talking about quarterbacks struggling at camp.
Football's back, baby.
Football's back.
Back again. Back again.
So, Hard Knocks got kicked off. Johnny Manziel, football doc, is out. We are touching base on Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo's struggles in camp. Which quarterbacks or which rookies we're excited to see in the preseason. A whole bunch of stuff. But before we get into that, go ahead and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to this pod. Honestly, we've seen a lot of new subscribers come in, so thank you. We really appreciate it. Be sure to tell your friends. Go ahead and drop some comments and leave some reviews as we're on all audio platforms.
And just a quick reminder, we're going to be at the 49ers preseason games against the Broncos, against the Chargers. We're going to be tailgating, asking you guys questions, just chatting, chopping it up, having a good time. So be there. If you're there, let us know in the comments. Where do you even want to start? There's so much going on right now because football's back.
I'm ready, dude.
I'm sorry for our people who listen for basketball, baseball, golf. Football is king around here.
Yes, it is.
So preseason starting. I think we'll start with, who are you most excited to see in preseason?
The guy I'm the most excited to see, and it's not even a quarterback, which is like a rookie that's not a quarterback, may surprise you. I've been hearing rave reviews about Zay Flowers. He just signed a multi-year deal with Under Armour. Hearing out of camp that him and Lamar Jackson have just been lights out together. I think he's a guy who kind of reminds me of a little bit of like Deebo Samuel. When you get the ball in his hand, he's going to, take off with it. I'm really excited to see what he actually looks like with pads on against a real live defense. So that's the number one guy that I'm just super pumped for.
Yeah, I think he has a chance to be their number one. And he kind of has to show out because the staff in Baltimore already shit on all their other receivers.
Yeah.
Remember, they were like, well, we keep on drafting duds in the first round, and there's like all these guys that are still on the roster.
Yeah.
Like, what do you say fuck me for? So he could be good. I thought he was going to be the best receiver out of the class. So now I think he needs to just keep that momentum going into production, especially with OBJ on the team.
That's true. And Lamar really hasn't had that lights out receiver, the true number one. So I think with him getting paid, them getting OBJ, and now drafting Zay Flowers, I think Zay Flowers has a chance to really show out because I think Lamar's looking to show off a little bit. I think he's really going to flex his arm talent, and he has improved as a passer over these last couple of years. So I'm really excited for it.
All right. So what's on the top of my list right now is, we'll go to the quarterback situation. Of course, I want to see CJ Stroud and Bryce Young and what they want to do, but I think I'm super intrigued with Malik Willis and Will Levis. At different points in camp, we're hearing Malik looks better, Will Levis looks better. Both of them we've heard look bad.
Yeah.
It's been a roller coaster of reports, and I really want to see which guy is going to step up. Did they waste a pick on Malik Willis, or did they hit on both? Did they miss on Will Levis? It's going to be a weird quarterback room.
Okay, so let's say I tell you a year from now that they have the number 2 pick in the draft. Are they drafting another quarterback?
They have to.
Yeah?
If you're the number 2 pick in the draft and you roll your guys out there, okay, halfway through the season, if you're not in contention, put Malik or put Will Levis out there. And if you're still looking bad enough to get the top 2 pick, that guy wasn't the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're going to pull Sam Howell here or Desmond.
Oof.
Isn't it weird that Sam Howell and Desmond Ridder are locked in day one starters this season?
Yeah.
And we didn't see really anything crazy from them. Is this the year to lock into guys that you're hoping are going to break out? But if they don't, I'll just get a quarterback in the first round next year.
I think it is Tank Central, bro. I don't see Desmond Ridder being the guy, especially with the videos coming out from camp where he's just throwing ducks. I don't see Sam Howell being a guy in the league. Interesting talk with Bieniemy being a little too hard on guys. So we'll see how that shapes out. I think both teams are really primed for fuck it. Let's just throw it out there. Like, I think the Commanders are primed for just a fail of a season just because, hey, we're going to probably more than likely get rid of Ron Rivera this year. We want to see what we have with Eric Bieniemy, and we'll see if he can step up to be a head coach. And if we're new ownership, we would love to have just our own rookie that we could really build around. So I think that's kind of the thinking there.
I mean, it's kind of been like makeshift quarterback. So you want to talk about the 49ers being like a weird quarterback situation. The Commanders, since Rivera's gotten there, has been like the same thing between Carson Wentz, Heineke, now Sam Howell. It's just been like, who's going to be the guy that gives us consistency across the board so we can be a competitive team in playoffs? And I don't know if it's the guy who had one start last year. Like, yeah, he looked good, or he had maybe two starts. He looked good in one of them.
Yeah. All right. Let's cut the shit. Jordan Love. Jordan Love, dude.
I think he already played and he looked decent.
He looked decent. Yeah. I think there's going to be obviously some growing pains with that, but is he going to be able to shoulder the load to just be a decent NFL quarterback? There's a lot of pressure on this guy. And say what you want, like, no matter what, there is going to be a lot of pressure moving forward just because of the shoes that you are fielding, not just from Aaron Rodgers, but all the way back to Brett Favre. Yeah. So, I mean, is he going to be able to do it?
And then I think they've already changed up their offense a little bit to kind of work with what he does best. And you got Romeo Doubs out there who's preseason All-American, who last year he dominated in the preseason. It didn't really translate into him being like a star receiver in the regular season, but now he's out there making plays again.
Yeah.
So the connections are there. He's worked with these guys for a few years now, with some of these guys. I don't know. I don't see it with him, because, I mean, you think of like Patrick Mahomes. Like, this guy sat and you're hearing like the team is like, yeah, we actually think this guy has something. Like,
yeah,
we're hearing stuff, rumblings. In all the years of Jordan Love being their backup quarterback, I've never heard rumblings like, man, once this guy touches the fields, it's over. This guy's going to be amazing.
But how much of that was squashed because you have Aaron Rodgers there and you can't talk up the next guy because Rodgers is still here and we want to keep this relationship as long as possible. And if you do have rumblings of like, holy shit, Jordan Love looks good, Aaron's like, all right, well, fuck you, I'll just leave. And that's ultimately
but that's my thing too. If you do have those instances in practice where you're like, man, this Jordan Love guy might be the guy, wouldn't you just be like, okay, well then we're comfortable with Rodgers getting upset and leaving because we have the guy here. Like, it's Jordan Love.
No, that's stupid. You have the fucking MVP. Like, you would want to keep the MVP over a guy who you're like, oh, I think he's good, but we don't really know. He's not battle tested. You have an MVP here, so you're going to try to keep him.
I don't know. Well, now it's his time. At the end of the day, they chose him over Aaron Rodgers still.
No, not really. Aaron Rodgers chose to leave.
It's a little bit of both.
I don't.
Let us know in the comments who chose to end the relationship. Is it a mutual breakup? Is Aaron Rodgers the one that said, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, let's get a divorce?
He did. He put his foot down. But anyways, you let us know.
They could have put their foot down and said, you're still going to play for us.
No, I mean, they were the one. Yeah, okay. You know what? Okay, you're right.
I mean,
yeah, you're right.
Dame Lillard.
Yeah.
Another guy that I'm really hyped to see in the preseason, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh,
give me all the Jahmyr Gibbs hype. I'm believing in it. I think the Lions low-key are going to come out of this with a great draft. People were complaining and saying that they were making terrible picks. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be a great player for them. I think Brian Branch is a steal. And I think the linebacker that they got is going to end up being pretty solid. And if 2 out of the 3 are hits, then good enough for me.
I think the main complaint was the value of it. Like, okay, well, you reached here, and now you ended up lucking out and Brian Branch was there. Cool. And yeah, overall, like, I think if you look at it as a whole, more than likely is going to be a success because a lot of those guys are ballers. But it's okay, well, did we need to use this pick here or could we have waited a little bit? So I think that was just the main complaint. You got running back and a linebacker. We've seen those are not positions of value, but I mean, if they pan out, they pan out.
I think it fills a void too, where like the Lions. They lose was it Jamal Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah, they lose him to New Orleans, and they need some guy like change of pace, some guy that's going to score a lot of touchdowns, get in the receiving game. So I feel really good about it. I think this is going to be an interesting Detroit squad. Jared Goff, can he lead them to the promised land?
It's going to be a completely different year for Detroit.
Is
Now they're going to be the ones who are hunted rather than the ones on the prowl. Can they maintain that level of intensity, of success, of, hey, being scrutinized and not like blocking it out? Like, so we'll see how it ends up.
is the hype train go like level of hype train? It's Jets, Lions, Cowboys, because every year they proclaim that they're going to the Super Bowl. Bears. I think that's like the level of fan base hype.
I would say you throw Eagles over the Bears.
Yeah. No, but have you seen how Bears fans feel about this team right now?
You guys are a bunch of fucking losers. Like, nothing has changed. Like, you guys got a wide receiver and you got some draft picks. Cool. But
they got Yannick, right? Yannick.
A guy that nobody wanted? Yeah, okay. That's fine. But what's changed from this year to like last year? Like, it's really going to be all up on Justin Fields' shoulders. And if he can't perform, he's going to be out of there because, again, it's a new coaching staff, a new GM. They're not his guy. Like, it's a real make or break year for Justin Fields.
Well, we'll see, man. It's just preseason.
It's just preseason.
Too crazy about it.
It's intense. It's football. I'm ready.
Yeah,
I'm ready.
Speaking of, it's just the preseason. Let's not get too crazy here. Jimmy Garoppolo, before the joint practices, really struggling in camp. We had the whole Davante Adams complaining about the offense and getting the ball. Now Brock Purdy, they go to joint practices with the Raiders, 49ers and Raiders. Brock Purdy struggling, threw like 4 picks. How are we feeling about these early camp struggles?
I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo ever been like a lights out practice guy. So I think he's going to do what he's going to do. He also did throw a hospital ball to Davante, and one of the first few plays of practice, joint practice with the 49ers, he ended up getting hurt. So that's just something the Raiders fans, welcome to hell.
How many times have we seen Debo get hit on a slant?
George Kittle
get hit trying to jump for the ball that Jimmy's just missing on.
Jawan Jennings is lucky he's so big. Otherwise, he'd be hurt all the time.
It's just so funny to me that, like, Raiders fans got Jimmy Garoppolo and they're so hyped. They're like, okay, this guy, he's good. And then you get reports he's throwing a lot of picks, and Niners fans are like,
told you. Hey,
what's that? The Cobby lame guy? He's like,
but also, like, with Jimmy, he kind of knew I think he does he really uses practice the way it's supposed to be, where it's like, I'm not good at this. I'm going to throw it 1,000 times. And even if my defense knows that's what's coming, like, I just need to work it out. And he is fine in the games. He doesn't have that many turnovers in action where he
just has timely ones that are terrible.
Where it's like, Jimmy, where the fuck was that at? Like, why'd you throw it straight to Lance Kendricks? Like, he has a purple jersey on, bro. But anyways, I think the more concerning one is Brock Purdy in the joint practice with the Raiders throwing those picks, just because we're not going to see him in that preseason game. This was a chance to really see how he is with live bullets. And so it is a little concerning. Maybe he is not 100% up to speed where he wants to be yet. It shows kind of on the field. So I think, hey, pack it in. Let's regroup and let's take it on next week and let's have a better week of practice.
I mean, how can he be like prepared and ready to go? Because he didn't have a whole offseason of like, I'm going to grow and get better. I'm going to make sure I stay sharp. He's literally just working as hard as he can to get back on the field.
Yeah.
Now he's did that. That's done. He's back. Now it's time to sharpen all the skills and like get the rust off and get in full swing. So I'm not really concerned with the bad practice. Like, all the quarterbacks are throwing picks in training camps.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a big deal to me. I think it's got to work through the kinks, got to get back to where you were. And if you think about it, like, Trey and all these other guys have had months of working with the team and like building up.
Going on a world tour with
they're working with Patrick
trainer
Mahomes
to trainer to
and,
trainer. Yeah.
Yeah, like they've been working on these for months now. And so for them to look better or the same in practice, it's like, well, yeah, this Brock Purdy just got here. Let's pump the brakes a little. Let's let him get back in the rhythm of things. And I think he can get back up to speed. But I mean, if you think about it, then like Trey Lance should be showing out. Like he should be so much better. And I know people are going to say it's because he's not getting practice reps. But he is our backup quarterback. So it's kind of like this weird balance where I want him to look better, but he's also not getting practice reps because he's our backup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned about Brock Purdy. His starting position, he's earned that.
Yeah.
Like that's solidified. He is going to be the starter. I think where it is, it's just like we got to build Brock Purdy's confidence before he heads in to week 1. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to make sure that he's up to speed? I think that's more of the concern. Or hey, like, are we going to hold him out week 1 just to make sure that he's 100% or like he's feeling pretty comfortable with the game plan? So I think that's just where it's at. Like, are we moving too fast with Brock Purdy?
Yeah, and what concerns me a little bit is Kyle Shanahan's tendency to shrink the playbook and like shrink his risk taking with the play calls. Like just how we saw last season when Trey Lance was supposed to be the guy and they're not really trying to call any throws. He's running the ball so much and it's just like a weird game plan where like, hey, if he's your franchise guy, like let him get the keys to the car.
Yeah. Give him some real throws. Like,
yeah.
Let's see what he can do. And I think it was really weird that when like Brock Purdy came in, Kyle Shanahan just opened up the playbook and was like, fuck it. Like, let's go, dude.
It was like, let's do, when everyone says like, well, he can't do the full Shanahan offense. This guy can't do the full. I've heard that for, I don't know how many years. This guy can't do the full Shanahan offense. I think with Brock Purdy, we saw the full Shanahan offense.
Yeah, and it was awesome.
And it was fucking awesome.
So,
and as much as I was so annoyed with hearing full Shanahan offense, I think when it finally all came together, I was like,
okay, it looks good.
I think the full Shanahan offense should be a thing. You know? And he just didn't trust Trey to do that. And I'm worried that coming in, he's not going to trust Brock right off the bat to do it. And that can lose us games early in the season.
I mean, so final verdict. Who should be more concerned, Raiders fans or 49ers fans?
You got to go Raiders fans.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you might see some Aiden O'Connell before the end of this year at quarterback. So in other news, Barstool Sports has been sold back to Dave Portnoy. Kind of a weird deal. Do you want to give some kind of backstory on that?
Yeah, so Barstool Sports was purchased by Penn Gaming a couple years back for $400 million. Together, they created the Barstool Sports Book, and I think because Barstool is not just a like ESPN news, it's more of like media and personality. Anytime they would have a controversy or anytime Dave Portnoy would have like something that was just kind of frowned upon, Penn Gaming stock would either go up or go down, and it was a pretty big roller coaster. So they ended up doing a deal with ESPN, and they released Barstool to Dave Portnoy for $1. And so he has a non-compete, so they can never go back into the gaming space, which he said he doesn't want to. And if he sells Barstool, Penn Gaming will actually get 50% of the profits. On the other side, ESPN now takes over the Barstool Sportsbook and creates ESPN Bet. So it seems like a win-win-win on all three sides.
They're able to do everything they want to do at Barstool unhindered. They can make their content, however, and he has full control. But they lose a lot of money kind of with no betting partnerships and none of their own sportsbook, which they don't want to make their own sportsbook, I don't think, now.
Yeah.
But they lose a lot, like a big chunk of that revenue is like sports betting, advertisement, and stuff like that. So they can't touch that anymore.
I think they could still use them as a sponsor, but they can't go into the gaming sphere themselves anymore.
Okay.
And so I think they could still do that. It's still a little bit hazy. We're only a couple days in, so we'll see how that ends up turning out. But I think one, it is better for them because they're not as commercial. I know he said it's back to the pirate ship for everybody. So, and he already came in and is just kind of on full go, ready to take over and take full creative control. So that'll be cool for the sports media landscape itself. I'm sure they're going to try to expand. I know they just moved into a Chicago office, so maybe they'll do a couple more offices. As far as ESPN getting into the gambling sphere, do you have any thoughts on that?
I always think it's weird because the NFL and these sports league have such strict non-gambling rules for their players, yet everything they do outside of that is obsessed with gambling.
Yeah.
And it's a big moneymaker for them. Guys are you're affecting these players' careers on them making sports bets outside of team stuff and outside of their league. And so I just think that's ridiculous. They need to lessen up on the restrictions for the players. But just as far as the media side, I mean, we already saw what happened during the NBA draft with Shams.
Shams, yeah.
Shams, he works with which one?
I believe it's MGM.
Yeah, he works with MGM. He has a deal with them, and Shams is the go-to reporter for breaking NBA news. Sports betting was all over Brandon Miller for the longest time. Sham tweets out, hearing rumblings that it's Scoot at number 2, shifts the lines. Everyone's smashing Scoot now. Everyone's smashing bets on Scoot now, and then it ends up being Brandon Miller.
Yeah.
So they just with one tweet shifted all the betting lines, raked in a bunch of easy cash.
Yeah. And so it's again, it's different when it was Barstool. No one's breaking news at Barstool. They're all reacting and creating content. Whereas with ESPN, this is a trusted news source. I don't know if I like them in bed with gambling. And I'm kind of the opposite thinking of you. I'm fine with the NFL having restrictions on these players because I want them to at least be an illusion of, I'm sure there is something happening where they're telling people hey, I'm hurt. Can you go ahead and do the under on rushing yards or something like that? But I just want there to be the illusion of fairness throughout.
I'll just say outside of their own sports.
Yeah, but even then, you know what you signed up for. It's a fucking $1 million contract. Just wait till afterwards. You know what I mean? You're fine. But anyways, I just want there to be that restriction. And so with ESPN now getting into it, it just
the
feels
illusion's gone for them.
It's just muddying the waters, dude. I just don't feel.
It's not just that they're a trusted news source; it's that they have better sources than most.
Yeah,
and they're getting. It's almost like insider trading. It's they're getting all the deep information that no one else is getting in that time frame. They can alter their tweets, alter their newscast to modify betting lines, and then everyone in their side cashes in and wins.
Yeah, and I mean, it could work both ways where they're hearing one thing, they don't report it, and people make these bets, and then they report it after.
Yeah.
It goes kind of both ways. So I just don't like that. I'm sure, again, it happens now because Shams did have, already did have the deal with MGM in place. So maybe I'm just looking at it through being naive, but I would just like to at least hold the illusion that things are fair.
I mean, we'll see. You guys let us know in the comments. Are you cool with ESPN kind of getting into the betting world? Do you want those worlds to be separate? How do you feel about this? Our next subject is we're going into the TV realm. Hard Knocks episode 1 drops. I gave it a good watch. Were you able to check it out?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So I have some notes on it. Couple things that stood out to me. What's your main takeaway?
My main takeaway is Aaron Rodgers is actually pretty fucking cool. And I think, let's say he retired in 2 years and he was to be a coach, I think he'd be extremely successful. The way he coached up Zach Wilson, the way he looks at the offense, the way he interacts with guys, it's not as weird or as awkward as you would think, hearing about him and hearing about what went on. Maybe just leaving Green Bay was enough to be you know what? I just was done with this. I just needed to grow. I just needed something different. And so I think he would be a really good coach, dude.
Watching him on the sideline, I was like, dude, make him your quarterback coach, pay him whatever money to be your offense coordinator. He's gonna be pretty good on the sideline if he ever wanted to do that. I don't know if he would. Maybe he'd just go into like broadcasting or acting. Maybe he has some connections.
That's true.
I mean, host of what was he gonna be host of, like Jeopardy or something?
Yeah, and he did really well.
Yeah. So I mean, interesting there. My main takeaway was Zach Wilson. That was interesting. My main thing when watching it was like, wow, these guys were like just seeing the joy in everyone's face of Aaron Rodgers walking in the door. These guys were so far out on Zach Wilson. Like, it was crazy how when the whole Mike White thing happened, no one came to like the defense of Zach Wilson. No one ever spoke out in defense of him. No one ever like vocal, like crazy.
That's my quarterback.
No one was ever like showing so much support. And then to show them be so happy and so like accepting and ready for Aaron Rodgers, I was like, man, it just felt like Zach Wilson got the cold shoulder so bad last season. And then he stuck around, and like, props to him. That's pretty mature of him.
I mean, I think the team is actually pretty stacked. If you look at it from top to bottom, you're like, damn, like the offensive weapons that we have here, the defense is hungry. We have a guy in Robert Saleh that knows what a high caliber defense looks like, and he really did build it out. So they look pretty awesome. They just needed a competent quarterback, and they knew it wasn't Zach Wilson. So yeah, like you get the MVP, of course you're going to be pretty pumped about it. So I think that's just more than anything. It's like all the guys were just starstruck. It's Aaron Rodgers. Like they grew, a lot of them were telling him, McCole Hardman, who literally was just with Pat Mahomes, was like, dude, I grew up watching you. I'm going to tell my kids I played with you, like one of the greatest of all time. Like you just got done with playing with Patrick Mahomes. Like, so it is like, he's just a different star amongst guys that are stars. So
I just felt a little for Zach Wilson in that episode.
Zach Wilson.
I will say his play wasn't there, but even him just owning up, he was like, we're playing worse and worse every week. The confidence starts to drop, and it's just like too much. And I think watching him now, maybe he didn't have this attitude then.
Yeah.
Maybe, but watching him now, his character, and just like him focused on every word of Aaron Rodgers, like I was like, this guy might in 2 years behind Aaron Rodgers become something. He's still young.
Yeah, he is still young, and he still has a lot of like ability that he showed flashes of. If he takes the right approach, cool. And I think that Aaron having his approach of like, hey, come here, let me show you something really quick. Like that's something that I didn't know if he was going to be capable of. And I mean, it's really cool to see him in this new environment on Hard Knocks and like getting that insight into how his mind works and how he is like, hey dude, I'm comfortable in my spot. I want to help you.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool.
Some of my notes, like Zach Wilson still looks like a child. He's literally eating an Uncrustable in the locker room.
I did notice that.
I'm like, dude, like this guy was asked to lead this franchise and he had so much expectation and he's a kid. Like he's literally eating an Uncrustable.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe he has a chance to be the guy after him. I would say like I didn't think there was a lot of substance in the episode. I thought there was, compared to like other years that I've watched, there was such a lack of like storylines and content. They opened with a trailer for the show and I was like, I'm here. Like why
you already got me, buddy.
Why like I clicked. Why am I watching a trailer?
Yeah.
And then it was like highlight scene after highlight scene. And I get it. Like we're watching football, but where's the juicy, these fringe guys storylines,
Well, even then they didn't really follow around like one, like with the Cowboys one, it was like we followed Dak, we followed Zeke, we got to see their home life. And I think that's why players didn't want to be on the second season of quarterbacks because they were saying like it was too personal. Mm-hmm. We don't want to have that. And it's like, okay, but that's what the show is. That's kind of what we want. And we do want a little bit more of that, like to see, hey, what's behind the curtain? Let me kind of take this walk with you. Like, it was cool to see Sauce Gardner graduate. Like,
Yeah.
I liked that. Like,
That was cool.
I think they could have had one more guy like being followed around.
It just felt like the Jets were more like, we don't want you here and we're going to limit you a lot, because we got like a few shots in different meetings. Most of the like first 30 minutes, it takes place on the practice field. I want to say on like the same day.
Yeah, I think so.
And so they were like, you get to film this one practice.
And that's
and
it.
that's going to be half your first episode.
Yeah.
And then they jumped straight into the game, and like that was the whole rest of the episode. So there was like a good like 10-minute, I think, chunk in there, and I would say just watch that.
Yeah.
Like when they start, like after the Aaron Rodgers love fest, they kind of get into the Sauce Gardner and what's his name, Garrett Wilson. Get into that relationship a little bit, but it's still kind of surface.
Yeah.
And then
it was cool to see him shoot the commercial.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And then the Zach Wilson stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was like the only substance I got in there. One little tidbit that I thought was interesting. Aaron Rodgers talking about his relationship with Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah.
When he first got there in Green Bay, and Nathaniel Hackett, kind of an odd guy, he was questioning if he's putting on, if he's kind of being fake because he's always on.
Yeah.
He's like, is this guy real? And that made me think it was never going to work in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have two guys who you're questioning. Are they being serious right now? Are they being real? Like,
this motherfucker's not real.
Yeah. Like these Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett are the same guy where they're like always on and always energetic and come off kind of corny. And you can't have both those guys as leaders. You need one guy to balance the other.
Yeah. And I think the only way it was going to work in Denver, like they really did put all their eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket. So that was the only way it was going to work out for Nathaniel Hackett. As soon as they didn't get Aaron Rodgers, you kind of knew it's going to go bad here. No matter what, it's going to end up going bad. And so I think, one, Sean Payton was just kind of keeping it real when he made his comments. It was really bad. You didn't make it through the season. You know what I mean? You kind of got to take your licks. You can't be offended when someone calls you out on a shitty ass job.
When they have to bring in a consultant,
yeah, to
help you be the leader of the team, writing's on the wall.
Yeah, I think Robert Saleh like handled the situation pretty good. He was just like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to comment on Sean. Sean, has been in the league a long time. He's really accomplished. I'm just going to say that if you don't have haters, you ain't popping. And I'm like, dude.
He had a couple good gems.
Yeah, I was like, okay. Yeah. I think, so one of the takeaways, I think that if things don't go right this season, I could see Robert Saleh and Aaron Rodgers really butting heads. One thing I noticed on the sideline during the game was Aaron was like, hey, it's only preseason, dude. Like, calm down. And Robert was like, I'm a perfectionist. I'm sorry. I'm actually kind of negative. Like, and so I could see them kind of, butting heads.
I thought they had a fun relationship. I think they were like, throwing jabs at each other, and they understood like, oh yeah,
But joking. You lose 5 games.
Who says they're gonna lose 5 games? Though?
I know, but let's see what ends up happening. And then Aaron was like, oh, we need to work on manifesting this. And you say some shit like that to a real hard-nosed football guy, like, come on, dude.
You don't think Saleh's manifesting? He's like,
no, he ain't with that shit.
All right. I mean, so the opening scene where he's coming out with this like story, I was like, oh,
the Jets of the Eagles.
Yeah, the Jets want to be the Eagles. Yeah. I thought he was gonna make a connection there with like, we want to be the Eagles because we want to be in the Super Bowl like the Eagles.
Yeah,
too close. Yeah. Yeah. That's basically all I had. I mean, it wasn't much to the episode. Let us know what you guys think about Hard Knocks and if we should cover the rest of the episodes. I don't know if I want to watch. It's kind of.
I'm okay with it.
It's just preseason. Let's not. Last thing, the Johnny Football documentary. It dropped. Everyone's talking about it. What were your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts were, damn, he was only in the league for 2 years. Like, doesn't it feel like we had Johnny Football in our life for like a fucking 5-6 year span of just like talking about this guy, like about like seeing his name and like the impact he had. it's so crazy to think about, like, just in 4 years of, 2 at A&M, 2 in Cleveland, like how big of an impact he really did have on pop culture and the sports world in general. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, my initial thing watching it was like, man, I loved Johnny Football back in the day, and like, who couldn't love him? Another thing, like watching it, it makes me think of like the Antonio Brown thing, like
be who you can afford to be. So, like, if you're causing problems, you better be fucking lights out on the field. And Antonio Brown was, and Johnny Manziel wasn't. So
yeah, so that's kind of what brought me my thoughts around this dog. I was like, he's just being who he can, like, as long as he can be amazing on the football field, everything else falls away. And that's what I really dislike about like the NBA and the NFL. It's like you can do all this crazy stuff off the field, off the court, and as long as you come and put up points for us, we don't give a fuck. And that's where players lose their careers. That's where they end up in jail or worse situations. I mean, Henry Ruggs just got sentenced to
10 years,
3 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we couldn't keep an eye on these guys. Like, so I just think the university failed him. I think the coaching staff failed him. I think the people he had around him failed him. And I don't know if he's all the way in a good place. Even now.
I don't know.
He's shotgunning beers in the opening scene. So,
I mean, recovery is not like, there's not one path to recovery. Some people, they have their ups and their downs. Like, if he feels like he's fine to do that right now, hey, you know what? All for it. I know he's opening up a bar at College Station, which is, A&M land. I think too, like, you're a kid and you blow up. He was the only freshman at the time to ever win the Heisman Trophy. The level of stardom, I don't think anyone was at Texas A&M was ready for that. First year in the SEC, this freshman goes and wins the Heisman. It's uncharted waters. So I think it was the perfect storm to create this like big monkey on his back. And so just one of those things I don't think anyone was ready for.
He's 19 years old winning the Heisman, beating Alabama, and doing it in like the most entertaining fashion we've ever seen. And then you take that kid and you say, do whatever you want off the field.
Yeah.
I think one of the parts that really stuck out to me was like Cliff Kingsbury was in it and him talking about Johnny, where the first thing, like right when he gets there, he gets arrested.
Yeah.
And then they go to practice day one. He shows out and Cliff is like, that's the guy no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's like the morale of Johnny Football's whole story.
Well, look at like even his agent was like, we just got to get to the finish. Like I need you to do this. Like he would fall off the wagon and he's like, hey, I fucked up. I'm going to probably fail this drug test. And he's like, you got to chug water. Mm-hmm. Like I'll go run routes for you. Shit like that, dude. Like that, like everyone did enable this kid, and I can't speak to what their intentions were, but some of it has to be like, we see all this potential in you. We want you to reach it. And I know a lot of it was, we see dollar signs, just make it to this marker and we're going to ride it out.
That's what most of it felt like to me. Like most of it felt like, if we can just keep this going as long as possible, we're all going to cash out on you.
Yeah.
Like regardless of your well-being. Because in like Cliff Kingsbury, like I'm kind of like, fuck Cliff Kingsbury at this point. Because if it felt super grimy when they're talking about how Johnny's partying, he's doing all this crazy stuff. And he's like, well, you kind of need that if you want.
Yeah.
Like
he's going to play. If that's what'll make it play good.
Yeah. If that's what's going to bring out his play style and him on the field, we kind of need that. And it's like,
Cliff, you're a grown ass man, bro.
Like you're so deflecting blame on this kid's life that you can't even you don't want to discipline him because it's going to take away from him playing time. It's going to take away money. It's going to take away wins. It's going to take away like all your opportunities later. But if you disciplined him, he could have had a better shot.
Yeah. And that's what Johnny's dad said too. He was like, well, when you send them to like programs like this, you're expecting them to make them better football players, but you're also expecting them to shape, him being a man. And like, it just didn't happen. Like, they didn't have discipline there. And like, you've seen, like, Johnny did come from a military style high school and he was thriving there. So like, if they would have just kept him, hey, you know what? We got to have you in at 7, no drinking. Like, I think he would have
I think it would have been difficult because he was still like wanting to do that lifestyle, like wanting to do the party lifestyle. But if you try to rein it in as much as possible, like that's your goal, rein it in as much as possible, and it's better in the long run.
Yeah.
They just felt like we're not gonna do this at all. We're just gonna. It almost was like, let's feed that a little bit because it adds to his stardom.
Yeah.
It adds to our boosters. Like, we're building a new stadium. Let's increase the popularity of Johnny Football. Like, bro, when he was in a Scooby-Doo costume and that went viral, they didn't do anything about it, and people are in the stadium wearing Scooby-Doo costumes.
Yeah.
So like, you don't think they were like all the people in the universe were eating that shit up, saying like, yeah, we're gonna make more and more money the more shit this guy does.
And also, so I think my like final kind of wrap up thoughts of like the Johnny Manziel doc, it was cool to go back and relive that moment in time. Like, god damn, like he was so electric.
Watching that Bama game live.
Yeah.
Like,
but ultimately, like, when it ended, like we turned it off and I was like, dang, that is actually really sad. Like, if you think about, this guy's still all fucked up about it. This guy didn't really have a shot to be any sort of successful. And so it does make you like sad and think like, what could have been with this guy?
Yeah, I think my overall takeaway is like, he didn't want it.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't want to be a star NFL quarterback. He just wanted to play college ball and have fun and hang out. And if maybe like if he went to a different program or he had some mentor or something, they could have instilled that in him. But at the end of the day, it was like not what he wanted.
Yeah.
It was cool, like where he was like, yeah, I want to get to the NFL to make money and like live this lifestyle. But he even said, he was like, I didn't want to be studying or like, I didn't want to put the work in. I just wanted to show up and like ball out, go have fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think you would have ever gotten the Johnny Football, like that, the Johnny Manziel that we could have gotten. And it is sad, but it's also like, from a football standpoint, I don't think he would have translated well to the NFL. Like, well, he didn't, but I'm saying like his play style, watching him in college, I was like skeptical because his whole thing was, I'm going to run around you guys. I'm going to be faster. I'm going to be more athletic. And once you get to the league, like, that's not what you're going to do unless you're like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
So I just think he wasn't going to translate well, and people overestimated him.
Yeah.